Okay, so of all the books you could write, this is not the one anybody was expecting, were they? Because I think everyone was expecting not another fall book. Yeah, which is a great name for a fall book.
Yeah. Well, that was page one, blank piece of paper. Not about the fall. Well, now where do I go? But no, it was always my intention to write about. Well, the thing was, a lot of the books about, most of the books about Manchester start at that Sex Pistols gig, or near enough there.
It's a very good point to start. I think
it's a brilliant place to start, but I don't think it's only the New Testament, if you will. No one tells the Old Testament, if you like.
So where did you decide to start then?
Well, I originally, my thought was, we discussed it, I was going to write about Manchester studios, and I was going to do it just a couple of chapters on Pluto, a couple of chapters on Strawberry, and then Cargo, and there's lots of other little ones. But then when I started looking into the story, and you start looking at the parallels of Strawberry being Graham Gouldman and Eric Stewart from the Mindbenders and songwriter, and then you look at Pluto and it's two of the guys from Hermits, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So then you've got that quote of Tony Wilson's, about putting something back because they invested in the studio, and then that was how Joy Division started. So I thought, well, that's great to have a quote, but is it actually true that the Manchester bands put something back that didn't happen in other cities, and that was the reason Manchester's such a vibrant music scene in '77? And it is. It's actually true. You've got Pluto and Strawberry. Between them, it's really unusual. I mean, like, strangely unusual. Look, if you think of the major Manchester bands that came after '77, they all recorded major works in Manchester, and it's not true of anywhere else. The Bunnymen didn't record their major albums in Liverpool, name any of the others, or the Birmingham bands, or anyone. So
you say a key factor in all the big, long, ever-evolving stories, the fact that Manchester actually really good studios in the city?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think I've said that in the book. I mean, if it had worked out that Joy Division had signed with Martin Russian for Genetic, which they were going to do, they'd have ended up recording in Olympic, maybe, in, wherever it is, Kingston-upon-Thames, or whatever it is. And it probably would have been a great album. It would have been a great album because he's a great producer, but it wouldn't have been Unknown Pleasures. There is something in the air, I think. And I know it's a bit hi-fi, but it's true, There's something in the air of Manchester that you look at the works that were recorded, you look at Unknown Pleasures, even Bank Robber by The Clash, there's something about it. It's completely different from all that other stuff,
Well, Bank Robber's a pretty amazing story, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that studio they recorded in, which is basically almost next door to here.
Yeah, it's just around the corner, yeah.
They're on tour and took a night off, dived in there for 5 hours and recorded their biggest hit.
Yeah. Which is unbelievable, isn't it? And it sounds, it's got the drums from New Dawn Phase on it. Because I was researching the book, and there's a version of them playing it at the Hammersmith Odeon for that concert for Cappuccino, which is like in the end of December '79, and it's like a it's like a jolly sort of ska number. And then 2 weeks later, they were in Pluto, and it's like, like sort of do yeah. It's like a sort of atmospheric thing.
So when you say that, was that a deliberate thing, or were they just...
I don't know.
Is this a bit of psychogeography creepy?
It is, it's completely psychogeography, I think. Yeah, but I mean, you don't know, they might have thought we're in Manchester, we'll absorb some of the atmosphere, because the next thing they did was Sandinista, which is really New York, because they recorded it in New York. So there is something in it, I think, the psychogeography of it.
You can't help being...
No, I don't think so.
Different spice around it.
No.
And that was it. That was a studio thing where Ian Brown and Pete Garland, the bass players, Stoke Rosie, actually turned up in the studio, which is quite weird as well.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they didn't know. All they knew is that the Clash were going to record in Manchester. That's all they knew. So if you go into the centre of Manchester, there's only one. There's only one major studio in the centre of Manchester. Pluto's the only one. There's a 24-track studio.
So it's a good guess.
So it's a good guess, yeah. So they basically just sat outside the old Garret, listening, and then the next thing, someone playing the drums, knocked on the door. They didn't even know where the door was because it's pretty anonymous. Knocked on the door. I'll come in and just let them stay the whole night. And they just there and watched them record it and everything. Yeah,
which it's one of the great stories of
the
music thing, isn't it? So I mean, so you personally, obviously from your musical history, you've recorded in a lot of these studios, haven't you?
I never recorded in Strawberry, no, funnily enough. We did Perverted by Language. We did at Pluto.
And you were making 316 Cargo, weren't you, up in Rochester?
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff in Cargo. I mean, that's one of the things is we did in Cargo. My first recording with the Fall. But the Fall are quite unusual because a lot of their early stuff wasn't recorded in Manchester, strangely. Like the first album was London.
Willfully perverse.
Yeah, well, if you could believe such a thing of Marquis Smith. Yeah. So, but then, again, I mean, it's the album that we did record, it's Perverted by Language, and it's dead stripped back, It's like sort of doom-laden and empty spaces, which is a big sort of factor in Manchester recording, I think. It's a lot of it's Martin Hanna. Like, it was one of the things that I said about the Stone Roses, one of the gifts he gave them was the power of emptiness. Because when they recorded with him at first, they had two guitarists. And if you've ever heard that single, is it So Young? And it's like bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, and then, but when they recorded, they did some other stuff with him. It didn't come out, but the first thing they did was I Am the Resurrection, you know, and they took the other guitar off, they had the guitars playing bass, Pete Gannon wasn't on it. And it's like, this massive vista opens up, and that's the kind of thing he gave them, I think.
So despite the fact you talk about the studio as being important to Manchester music, is this all coming back to Marr and Hannah? Is this coming back to one person?
I don't know. I don't think it's all down to him. I think a massive part of it was him recording Unknown Pleasures in Strawberry kind of unlocked the vision he had in his head, and I don't think he could have done it anywhere else. Because one of the things about Strawberry was Eric Stewart, Mindbenders guitarist, obviously they started, and he was massive Steely Dan fan. And one of the big things about that is you have this thing called close micing, where you put close micing, you mic everything up, and you basically record everything as if it's completely dead. You know, there's no atmosphere, there's no natural ambience. You're like recording in a completely dead room, and then you put all the ambience on yourself. Like you use effects or whatever. So you basically build a picture up in your head, and that what enabled Hannah to do that, I think, was that Strawberry was like it was state of the art in like killing all your natural ambience, because he was trying to imitate Steely Dan, because they kind of were masters of it. So you have like pine on the walls and all this special stuff. So you go in there, and if you, like I say, if you do that, there's absolutely no ring whatsoever. It's like completely dead. So then he has all these effects that he got from AMS.
He invented it.
He was like their beta tester, yeah. So you know.
Didn't he? I don't know if it's true, but obviously you would know this because you've done the book now.
Yeah.
But he would write to AMS and say, "I want a reverb or a delay that does this, and this."
Yeah.
They would create it and send it back, and say, "Oh, we've got one," but basically he designed it.
Yeah. It was his vision, but they were like sort of aerospace engineers, them two.
Yeah.
So then he couldn't have done it anywhere else really. It was a 24-track studio. It was on the doorstep because he had 4 young lads who didn't know the way around the studio at all. If you've ever heard an Ideal for Living, you can tell they don't know the way around the studio, because it sounds like recording in a cardboard box. But he did it, and I think it was down to Strawberry. I think Strawberry enabled him to create this vision, which then informed Manchester music for the rest of the time, I think.
So basically, the crux of the argument, maybe not Marr and Hannah, but Strawberry.
Yeah.
And one of the great untold stories of Manchester music at 10cc as well. I mean, so the fact that they did this thing, they built a state-of-the-art, one of the best studios in the country in Stockport. It's not heralded, is it? Much?
No. The whole story of them is not heralded enough for me, which is the other motivating factor for the book. If you look at the careers of Graham Gouldman and Eric Stewart, Graham Gouldman, he wrote Bus Stop, he wrote No Milk Today. He never had much success with his own band. But then when you read a story, you pick up, because obviously researching the book, and you read about 10cc, and they don't mention it. They don't mention that Mindbenders will have 2 number 1s in America or whatever. If it was now, they would be selling themselves on that so much. But they're kind of like embarrassed by it when you read stories of 10cc. And it's like, we used to be in a band in the 60s, but they were massive, absolutely huge. And they all were.
So what is it? I mean, obviously they don't fit the sort of hip narrative of Manchester. But like you say, they don't really put themselves in the story either, do they? I mean, why is it? So to them, is it the geographical location of their music was unimportant? They could have been from anywhere. They just happened to be from here, and they built a studio here. What was it, because it was cheap, or were they actually trying to put something back?
No, I don't think it was. I think it was a deliberate thing. And I think if you look at Bus Stop and No Milk Today, they're Manchester songs. They are Manchester songs. I think Greg Gouldman was massively proud of being from Manchester. But it's just, I don't know whether they were trying to be cool or whether it was, and it wasn't hip, but bollocks to being hip. They should have been shouting from the rooftops. I wrote this song, I was in this band. Because they were brilliant bands, the Mindbenders, and Graham Gouldman's band. The Wellmans were a great band as well. They never had any success, but the stuff he wrote in the 60s, For Your Love and all that's incredible.
10cc are some great.
10cc are a great band. I mean, there's a lot of that. I was never a massive 10cc fan myself, but when you listen to it, there's this argument going on about, this is very admirable and this is very clever, and then this is a brilliant bit of songwriting, and that was what was really interesting about 10cc, because they had both of them. They had this massively clever studio engineering, and then they had Godley and Cream, who were very clever sort of smart arse. Well, smart arse is probably the wrong word, but very sort of clever kind of writing, and they had this tussle back and forth between brilliant pop and clever sort of, not quite jazz, but clever songs. And when they got it right, they were just the best band in the world. But because it was such a difficult argument, a lot of the time they didn't get it wrong. Sometimes they were a bit too poppy, sometimes they were a bit too smart-ass for their own good. Like if you look at some of them where they're doing like The Dean and I, and it's like a parody of Rodgers and Hammerstein, and you think, that's great, and that's really clever, and that's a brilliant bit of work, but it's not a great, you know, it's too clever in a way.
It's a good pop single.
I think it is. I think if you took 3 of the best ideas, you could make a absolutely brilliant pop single. But then there's like, oh, we'll have a bit of an operatic bit here, and then it's very difficult to pull off. And if they did it more than anybody else, I think 10cc.
So what other bands kind of utilise the Strawberry sound? You know, deliberately, you know, went down.
Well, there's the whole Factory thing. A lot of them recorded at Strawberry. You know, like Certain Ratio and all, you know, Stockholm Monsters, all them kind of bands.
This is basically the Hanley thing. He liked the studio.
He loved it, yeah.
He liked the way it's set up. He had his sound, he could control it. But he also used Sweet 16 for a few things.
He did, yeah. But I think a lot of it depended on the budget, I think. I think if they could afford Strawberry, he'd go in there. Otherwise, he was in. But it was Cargo and then it was Sweet 16. But Pete Up called it Sweet 16, didn't he?
Yeah. Sort of interesting pun, isn't it?
First one on the list, that is.
But that studio had a very different kind of sound to it. It's an amazing live room.
Yeah.
And people utilised that sound, that live room, accidentally good live room.
Yes.
I don't think it was ever built as a great studio.
I don't think it was. I think it was above a shop or something, wasn't it? There was a great studio, Cargo. Really sort of great place to record and really sort of. I don't know, sometimes you get the atmosphere in the studio and it's just kind of right, you know, and you just feel right in there. We really like it.
My little pet argument is that Cargo Sweet 16 is the key post-punk studio.
Yeah.
Gang of Four, Dead or Alive. I mean, everybody from the North used to go there, do their first 2 singles, but then when they had the money, they seemed to go somewhere else. But the records they made, it sounded great, that John Peel would initially play, the Broke the Bands, tend to be called them. They used to have this great wall where they put all the sleeves.
Yes, that's right, yeah. There was that John Peel in the bathroom. That was always, I was like, that's a bit weird.
But when you were 16, it was a bit unnerving going there. Just this wall of fame, it made you feel very small. Yeah. So and it's a very different kind of atmosphere and vibe. You've worked in there, haven't you?
Yeah. The first thing I ever did with the Four, well, the first few things I ever did with the Four was in Cargo. So that was, for me, that was like setting. This is what a studio is. It was only I didn't realise that they were ever any different anywhere else. But that was not my studio, but that was what I thought studios were like. So any other studio I was ever in was always compared to Cargo.
You mean you heard stories of studios that had kettles and facilities?
Sweeping brush, you know, that kind of thing. You
didn't really have those things there. You had Rochdale, which was shut about 4 o'clock in the afternoon them days, didn't it?
Yeah. Funny place, Rochdale, because I used to work with a guy from Rochdale, and he was always going on about Lisa Stansfield, you know. He was kind of like, Lisa Stansfield, she was around here, she went to our school, like, you know, she got really big-headed when she made a load of money, you know. She used to drink in the Crown. She's in the Cushion and Kettle now, it's 2 mile away. I was like, all right, yeah, bloody hell, she's sold out.
Well, apparently, she had a studio up in the hills, another studio which you probably don't even know about.
No.
Because it's her own personal studio, it's not one.
Right, okay.
But she used to borrow mics off Sweet 16, swap them back and forth, because that was a proper-ish studio.
Yeah.
And that was set up by Tractor, the kind of...
That's right, yeah, John Braley.
Band, which John Braley is another totally brilliantly unsung engineer whose name's on so many great records in Manchester.
Yeah. And again, you know, people don't necessarily realise everything that was recorded there. I mean, there's definitely should be a book about Cargo. I think they write him on, actually. I think John's doing one with somebody, I think.
I think there's a website as well. Yeah, but this is all encompassed in what you're right about, isn't it? Yeah.
I've really tried, because it was one of them, if you look at it, you can just go, but I really tried to just keep it from the people who created Strawberry and Pluto, is the first half of the book, and the second half of the book is the stuff that was recorded at Strawberry and Pluto. So it's like a beginning and a middle and an end, and it ends when those 2 studios closed, and kind of everything went back to London.
I mean, it's fascinating to take a really micro sliver of a whole scene and to tell the whole story through it.
That was what I wanted to do, because once I hit on the key of those 2 shows, you can do it. You can do Buzzcocks. They recorded Everybody's Happy Nowadays there, and then you can go back and tell the story of New Hormones and Spiral Scratch. The Clash, you can do that. That was bands coming in, because another really interesting one is you've got the Clash, and Neil Sedaka is a really interesting one, because he ended up recording in Strawberry, and he was a massive star in the 60s, and then he was a songwriter, and he was kind of beginning to wane, and then he heard Is This the Way to Amarillo, Tony Christie, because he wrote that, and that was recorded at Strawberry, and then he ended up recording an album there. And again, it's this whole thing like the Clash, it's this whole thing where he's like la 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 la, and then he does record it, it's the tra-la-la days are over, and he's all like, and solitaire's the only game. Bloody hell, he must have got off the train in Stockport, he's gone right now. So yeah, that's
the Stockport effect.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I think there is, and there genuinely is an atmosphere that pervades those songs that we recorded. Like the Smiths' first album, you know, is recorded at Pluto. Joy Division's first album's recorded. So it's possible to tell the story of all these bands. The Fall, obviously.
So did you worked at Pluto as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so what was the difference between that and Strawberry? What kind of...
I don't know what the difference was, obviously, I think it was more a workman-like studio, I think, Pluto. It was a professional, because they did a lot of advertising jingles. And that was one thing. Another thing, Keith Hopwood, because there was two of them from Hermits who started Pluto, but the guitarist, he went back to the Hermits. And so it was basically Keith Hopwood's vision that did it. And what he did all the way through was he did these advertising jingles because Granada were just up the road, which is the reason he moved it into the centre of Manchester. He started off upstairs from Strawberry in Stockport.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
they both come out the same...
Yeah, that's right,
space.
Yeah. So that was how they started, was they used to get Strawberry's cast-offs, because the big thing that Strawberry did is every time they ever made any money, they bought something new, you know, they bought some new mics or they bought a new desk or whatever, so it was always constantly being reinvested in. Not necessarily the band's money, but any money that the studio made, they never took a profit from it, they always ploughed it back in, so they're upstairs thinking, oh, we'll have that, thank you very much, get that upstairs, and they got sort of bigger, and then what happened was they did Matchstock Men and Matchstock Cats and Dogs in Pluto in Stockport, and that kind of put it on the map and they made a bit of money, and then he moved it into Manchester then, because he was doing all these advertising jingles for Granada, and he was, instead of schlepping 8 mile up the road, they could just nip it up to Granada.
So why would bands use that space? Because it doesn't sound like a very ideal space to make a punk rock or a post-punk kind of record, does it?
I think he subsidised it for years. He subsidised bands by the advertising thing, so he could offer a cheap rate. I think that was one of the big things. Was Jeff Travis hit on it, and he was ringing him up and saying, "Can we?" And that was the same with Strawberry. You used to get good money from Barclay James Harvest or Sad Cafe, and then he'd use that and say, "Well, we'll have Joy Division in at the weekend or whatever, or overnight." And there was this real thing of giving something back. I mean, I know it sounds a bit wanky, but it's true. They did do it. You know, they made the money. They didn't just sit on it. They built a studio, both of them, and then they subsidised new music with their advertising, with their revenue stream. With Strawberry, it was 10cc, and with Pluto, it was advertising revenue. Which is a marvellous thing to do.
It's quite interesting, really, because these bands have a very specific sound and a very groundbreaking sound.
Yeah.
But recording studios aren't really ideally suited to that sound. Maybe Strawberry, because of the Hanley thing.
Yeah.
But Pluto doesn't sound to me like a studio that's really. I mean, it's a perfectly fine, let's say, workman-like studio.
Yeah.
But not a studio that's particularly set up for the kind of sounds that people want in that kind of period.
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of Pluto's appeal, but it was handy. I think it was there, and there was a 24-track studio in smack in the middle of town, and it wasn't that expensive. Because if you sat and thought about it, we're going to have a 24-track studio smack right in the middle of Manchester City Centre, it would be astronomical to do, because massive building, But he always subsidised the bands, so the Clash got in there, and the Smiths were in there. Like I say, Rough Trade, if they did Perverted by Language and the Smiths' first album in there, and whatever they were known for, it wasn't throwing the money about. So it was a subsidy that did it, which is a great thing, I think.
It's interesting because, really, a lot of bands nowadays, they agonise over getting the right studio, to get the right sound, to get the right drum sound, to get the right room, the right mics, the right way to get the sound you want in your head.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like then, just because it was cheap. I mean,
but it's a weird thing, isn't it?
So was it fortunate that people went in there, or did people's vision kind of override the limitations of the studio, or did the studio actually, by mistake, actually have the right kind of sound they were looking for?
I think it's weird, isn't it? I think there's real sort of, if you look at Perverted by Language, a lot of people don't like that sort of album, because we did an album called Ex Induction Album. We did it at this converted cinema in Hitchin, but it was only 16 track, and it's 2 drum kits, 2 guitarists, and it's like, it's like bonkers, really. It's a really dense album. It's a great album, but so then we went into Pluto, because we needed 24 track for 2 drummers, really. And you're going to say, all right, where are we going to go? Well, if we're going to pay for 24 tracks, we'll have to stay at home and save some money on the hotel. So that was basically why we ended up in Pluto. And I think there was a similar thing with the Smiths. I think we can pay for a 24 track studio, we can't pay to put you all up in a hotel.
So economics
was a big part of it. I think it was, yeah. But it was in the centre of Manchester. I keep coming back to it, but it fit the bill, and it was important because it was there. There was you could do it. You could get the greatest band, one of the greatest band, the Smiths. You could get them in Manchester, recording in a proper recording facility, 24 tracks, and be in Manchester. And I think that's a great thing, that the Joy Division recorded the first album in Manchester, the Smiths recorded the first album in Manchester. As I say, keep banging on about it, but it doesn't happen with other bands, It doesn't. It's important that's like a sort of hand in a baton on, if you like.
But why would Manchester bands do this? But they're not going to the studio centre Manchester to soak up the side of the city.
No.
Is it because they're tied to the money than bands in Liverpool?
Probably, no, because you couldn't do it in Liverpool. You couldn't do it. There wasn't the same opportunity to do it. Now, I think the fact that they had no money didn't hurt. But I think the important thing is, if you're a band, you're the Smiths, you look round, you say, oh, we can do it in Manchester. We can do it at Strawberry. Did the first single at Strawberry. We can do it in Manchester. And I think that's a really important thing. They could have done it somewhere else, but they didn't. It doesn't matter why, or it doesn't matter that it was because they built that studio. They recorded that album in Manchester, and that's massively important as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, there's also the essence that record is to take bands out of their cities, to get them away from their friends, the drug dealers, the dodgy mates, and try and get them to concentrate on being that band. In exclusion of the famous countryside, your rock fields, etc., where they have no choice but to make the records. So would recording in Manchester Stockport, could that be detrimental?
It probably could, but then I don't think that if you're looking at the bands we're talking about, it wasn't like they said, right, here's Strawberry for 3 months, go away and make an album. It was like you've got 2 weekends here, get this fucking album made. So there wasn't time to be distracted. Thing.
So that's key as well.
Yeah,
the less
definitely.
time you have, the better.
I always think. I don't know how bands do it. And that's another thing about 10cc. They had their own studio. They had as much time as they want. How would you ever finish? They're just flying around forever. But I think it's really bad to recording artists to say take as long as you want. I think that's a really bad and a really difficult thing to do. It's not impossible, Rumours isn't a bad album. They had a couple of weeks in the studio, only Fleetwood Mac. But it's really hard, I think. I think it's a really difficult thing to say, right. And I think it's been the ruin of some bands, Elastica, what was it, 5 years? Record an album on heroin, clean up, listen to it back and think, oh, this is a lot of crap, start again, get halfway through, get back on the heroin, record it again.
You listen to an old record and still want to change your hi-hats. It's just the madness of recording, isn't it?
It's pay your rates, the hi-hats all wrong.
I know most people bought that record, took it back because the hi-hats sound. These things
made a fortune.
To the fans as well. So why did 10cc open in Stockport? I know they're from up here. I mean, was it a conscious decision to stay up here? Was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was definitely a conscious decision to stay up here because everyone moved out of London. It was a conscious decision, I think, and it was kind of to his detriment. I think that they didn't move to London. I think it sort of broke the back of Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders because they were absolutely knackered by the end of it because you can't do anything in them days. You couldn't be a band and sleep in your own bed. You couldn't. Touring, obviously, you're away. The only thing you could do then was Top of the Pops. That was the only thing that was in Manchester. Any kind of recording, any kind of interaction with your record company, anything, you had to be in London. And they refused to move. So in the end, he was completely and utterly frazzled by the end of it, I think, Wayne Fontana.
But this, when you actually mentioned Top of the Pops is actually up here as well. Yeah. It does give a sense that Manchester, it's not Doncaster, is it?
No, it's definitely not.
It's already punching above its weight from the start.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that was a bit of a, we'll have it in an old church in Manchester. Because they didn't realise...
But it's still here.
I know that, but the BBC didn't realise what they had on their hands, I don't think, when they started Top of the Pops. You can tell that by the fact they haven't got any film,
Was that because the person who presented it terrified them into having it up here? Certain
I'm not getting into that one, blimey. He terrified everybody else. I don't know why they did it in Manchester. I mean, I was talking to talking to CPLA, and it's in the book, and it says a disused Wesleyan church. You're wrong there. It wasn't disused. It was already a studio on Top of the Pops. It was already a film studio. They'd made films in there and stuff. So I'll have to change that for volume 2. But it was just, I think it was just handy. And we got this pop music program. Well, we're not doing
they didn't even realize. They thought it was nothing.
I think so. I don't think they ever. Well, like you say, the only film they've got of the Beatles on Top of the Pops is a clip they showed on Doctor Who or something, where he's like saying, "Oh, and this is this is like late 20th century or whatever," and there's a little bit of the Beatles, and that's it. They just wiped them all. Yeah. They didn't know what they had on their hands.
But it still gives Manchester certain cachet. So
it's definitely.
I mean, it's pretty amazing that they still put these studios here instead of joining the general drift down to London.
It wasn't a drift. Yeah. It was a stampede.
But there was still a music thing here.
There was a massive scene here. There was a massive scene in Liverpool as well, wasn't there? But
bigger.
I mean, probably bigger if anything. But they all went to London. Cilla Black can talk about Scotland Road as much as she wants, but the first thing she did was on a train to Euston, she never darkened Liverpool's door again, did she?
No, yes.
Well, there's a rumour that she had to relearn a Liverpool accent to do Blind Date, because, you know, she'd been down south that long, and they thought, what are you, Cilla Black? Look, I like to believe...
I'm not sure who she learnt it off, but...
Jerry Marston.
So Strawberry was also, it was named after Strawberry Fields as well, wasn't it? So there's a little Beatles thing going on there.
It is. Yeah. Like, I've been told that whenever I start talking about the Beatles in the context of this book, you always sound like you're slagging off the Beatles. I'm not slagging. I love absolutely love the Beatles. But there's quite an ironic name for the studio Strawberry, in my opinion, because you've got Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields Forever, which is very possibly two of the greatest productions there's ever been. But they're both in London. All the Beatles did was name a couple of songs, whereas they built a studio in Manchester. There's nothing. Imagine if the Beatles had built a studio in Liverpool. If they put Apple in Liverpool, but no, it's not. It's on Savile Row, which is like the richest street in the richest bit of London, which is the richest city in the country. You know, why build it there? But they did, because they built it there because they weren't interested in backing.
Well, there is an argument that the Beatles are actually a London band.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. There is an argument.
You know, all their records.
Yeah.
Virtually all the records recorded when they lived in London. So,
yeah, of course, yeah. And even the ones where, well, to be honest, they didn't hang about, did they? They didn't. No. They weren't.
Well, they did. At the time that when they were breaking through, that was it. They had no choice. That's what he did, wasn't it? Yeah.
You say that.
Yeah.
But they did Hermits didn't move to London. There was a choice. You don't have to do it.
They didn't like. Well, they're
you're not telling me.
Same, was it?
It got to 1965 and the Beatles. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to move. You're going to tell Paul McCartney that they'd lay on a sedan chair to get him from Liverpool to the studio if he wanted it to.
So was this a reaction? Maybe was Tennessee a reaction to this idea, or they just wanted to stay here?
I think they just wanted to stay.
Yes, it's not like with Tony Wilson in that period where it was a very political thing. It's like, everyone stay here, let's try and make it out Manchester. Tennessee weren't thinking them terms, they're just songwriters who want to stay near home, where they live.
Maybe, I think so, but I don't think you can separate the two necessarily, because, like I say, they did it, so I don't care necessarily. The fact that they stayed in Manchester and built Strawberry and Pluto in Manchester, that'll do for me. That's important enough. Whether it was because his kids were at school or whether it was because... I don't care. They did it in Manchester. There was a lot of good reasons, and I'm not blaming people for doing it. There were a lot of good reasons to move to London from Liverpool or Manchester in 19... Because they were fairly grim places, you know. There was a lot of good reasons for George Harrison to move out of his terraced house and go and live in, you know, Knightsbridge or wherever. And I'm not knocking them necessarily for doing it, but you don't have to. And I'd like to celebrate the fact that some people didn't do it.
Would you say it was more the punk and post-punk periods where people actually took advantage of these studios, or is there, you know, Strawberry, what year did it open? Was it
60s?
Oh, way back in the 60s.
67,
yeah,
something like that, yeah.
Was this,
68, well, I mean, they started it off, it took a while to get going. They did this song called Neanderthal Man, that was like the big hit they had.
I love that song.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah. But it's not really a song though, is it? It's like, but
that's why I love it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So,
So was there before punk though? Did these have a cultural impact? They added a studio here. Is there a lost? Obviously you've done the book.
Yeah.
So there must be a lost history.
There is. Well, there's a lot, but there's a lot of stuff that kind of fallen through the cracks, like I was mentioned before, like Barclay James Harvest, like a prog band, Manchester prog band, yeah.
John Peel Faves.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And Sad Cafe were another one they recorded at Strawberry. But they I think Sad Cafe could have been a massive band, they just really timed it badly, I think.
They got one massive hit.
But they were they just came on as soon as punk came along. Then they were.
But that's when they had their hit.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it? They became like passe overnight, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I never liked them, I must admit, Sad Cafe.
Well, they're an interesting sort of in between.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
70s kind of band, weren't
they?
But what I'm interested in is, like, you're sort of talking, and your basic theory of the book is that these studios have an effect on the local culture.
Definitely.
Did it take all the way up to punk and post?
I think it did. I don't know, because one of the things is, why did Buzzcocks go and see the Sex Pistols in London and not say, I'll tell you what, we'll come down here next weekend, we'll do that again, that was great, they were a great band, they said, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll get the Sex Pistols and we'll bring them up to Manchester. You know, we won't say it's all happening in London. We'll say no, let's do it in Manchester, which is the parallel with the studios. You know, Buzzcocks didn't. They said, right, well, let's have them on in Manchester, and then with a bit of luck, Pete Upney and Curtis will turn up, and Marquis Smith and Steve Hanley out the fall will turn up, and maybe they'll form a band as well. I'm sure they didn't think of it in those terms, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
And again, there's no parallel anywhere else. So there's a little parallel with Liverpool, like a year later when the Clash played there, and Pete Wiley was there. But Manchester, they didn't have everywhere else, did it? I mean, the Sex Pistols didn't just play in London. I mean, they did most, at that time in 76, they only ever played around London, but they did play. But there isn't a massive, you know, when they played Middlesbrough, there isn't 8 bands from Middlesbrough who changed the face of music. It only happened in Manchester.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Middlesbrough, there's not 8 bands.
Well, no, there's not 8 guitars in Middlesbrough. I'm being flippant, but you know, there isn't an equivalent, is there? There isn't an equivalent in all the places. It's not like everywhere the Sex Pistols went, there was immediately half a dozen bands that showed up. I think it only happened in Manchester.
I try and think now.
Go on then.
Birmingham will have a slight...
A bit later though, won't it?
Yeah, it's not as documented because Manchester's very good. The Big Loud Hail documented everything.
Yes, of course, yeah. But
Northallerton, penetration falling after that gig.
Yeah, there's one.
It's a very small place.
Yeah, Northallerton. I think you cast your net slightly wider than Northallerton.
And 10cc didn't have a studio.
No, they didn't. No.
But that's what I was saying. I was just interested in this idea that it took 10 years before people actually took advantage of this sort of hidden infrastructure. Did people know it was here? Or did people in bands in the 70s, 74, 75, going to record, still think you had to record in Manchester? Didn't even realise...
Well, I think by then, there was definitely a certain thing where there was little, not quite demo studios, but slightly better than demo studios. There was a few of them, and there was people, they were all over the place, you know. But what there wasn't the infrastructure to say, well, I'll tell you what, we can do a real, proper recording here. We can do a proper 24-track show. We can get Joy Division's first time. Everyone's doing the first EP all around the country in these little studios, and then everyone does when they get signed or whatever, or they're all off to record in London. Whereas in Manchester, you could do that bit without moving. You could do, like I say, Smith's first album in Manchester, Joy Division in Manchester, and there is no parallel to that because that infrastructure was there slightly higher up. The demo studios are quite easy to do, I think. Easy to set up, you don't need a great room or all that, but the infrastructure where you get the proper world-class recording on your doorstep was unique to Manchester, I think, and London, obviously.
So outside like London and those kind of sort of posh home counties, get your head together, country.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, they're there. I mean, they're an absolute fortune, aren't they?
So would Strawberry be the best studio in the country outside that sort of?
I think so.
Southern ring,
I think the thing that you've got to remember about Strawberry is you've got Eric Stewart and Peter Tatzel, who was his engineer. But Eric Stewart what made Strawberry such a fantastic place was they had this period before they were 10cc where they did this thing called bubblegum. There was wave your hands in the air, all that kind of crap. Well, they got Graham Gouldman to start writing songs for them, and I think he went a bit bonkers writing this. Well, as you would, going into my office every day and writing this nonsense. And he said, "I'll tell you what, we make us a start at the studio in Manchester. Can we do it there?" So then they were getting all this stuff, and it wasn't artistically challenging musically. So the only thing they had was to play around in the studio and make it as interesting a recording as possible for them to save their sanity. And then there's something of interest in the record, in the production, and there's some really genuinely brilliant productions. Like Sausalito, I don't know if you've ever heard the song, but it's brilliant. The record, it's not much of a song, but the record, and there's a song called Susan's Tuba, which was Freddie and the Dreamers. Well, it's not Freddie and the Dreamers, it's actually 10cc did it, and it is possibly the worst song I've ever heard in my life. Ooby dooby dooba, Susan's on the tuba, that's the chord. And it must have been a competition, let's see how crap we can write a song. But I mean, and then so that to keep them, stop themselves going bonkers, they reinvested in the recording process. Eric Stewart's engineering. There's some recording sessions there. Eric Stewart was guitarist, singer, producer, and engineer, all on the same session at the same time. Nobody else in the studio, just the four of them. A 24-track studio, and he's fiddling the knobs, he's setting the mics up, he's saying you stand here, he's tuning the guitar, he's going in, he's playing the guitar, and he's singing the song, all at the same time. So by the end of that. By the time they came to be in 10cc, I think he knew more about studios than anybody else in the country. I mean, he'd done it all, And then you end up with I'm Not in Love, which is just perfect record, isn't it, I think.
That's what they said at the time. I remember that came out. People said pop music can advance no further. Yeah. This is the peak of everything. Where can it go next?
There's an argument to be made, I think.
Then punk happened and it all changed again.
Yeah, it all changed again, yeah.
It never gets to stops, does it?
Yeah, but the thing about I'm Not in Love is the only other record that was as bonkers, because there's 624 tracks of vocals on it.
Yeah.
Give or take,
Yeah, you might have lost one.
Yeah. But the only one that's that sort of ridiculous amount of studio jiggery pokery is maybe Bohemian Rhapsody, which was the same year. But that was...
Yeah, an oddly similar in scope and ambition.
But that was the most expensive single of all time, that record, because they were hiring the studio, and they were hiring engineers, and they were hiring producers. So at Stroke, I'm Not in Love, all that cost was gone. So you could do it, you know. And it was worth it. I think it was worth it, because it's a great song, that's the thing. And one of the arguments is, if you had a song like I'm Not in Love, you'd say, let's get this down, 2 guitars and a vocal, that's a brilliant song, that. But because they had their own studio and they had open-ended time, they furnished it with the greatest production in the world. And it didn't need it, the song didn't necessarily need it, but thank God they did, because it's just mind-blowing, that record. And it still is, the fact that there's nothing's come along. I mean, you can do anything now, you can have 4 million tracks if you want now, it's all
on
digital.
your phone.
Yeah, on your phone, yeah. On the train. But
this kind of negates one of your earlier arguments, everything's better if you do it quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, and I didn't say it was better, I said it's almost impossible to, it's very, very difficult. It's not impossible to do, but it's so hard to say, we can spend as long on this song as we want and get it right, you know. And they did it. I mean,
which is actually a credit to them.
It is a massive...
Keep that vision and all that madness.
It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think it's celebrated enough, that record. I don't really... I mean, it's a big hit, don't get me wrong, but it's just like...
You mean you celebrate it as a piece of kind of pop art or cultural...
I think it's some kind of peak, I think.
And the fact that it's recorded in Stockport is quite amazing.
Come on, someone should write a book, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they should.
Yeah. It is amazing. And it is, you know, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take a couple of questions off the floor. Has anybody got a question?
I think it was to begin with. I think the fact that they could do it, I think, because what will have happened, in my opinion, is Morrissey said, oh, I need a 24-track studio, and Rough Traders said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll stick them, there's a 24-track studio in Manchester, that way we can save on having them in a hotel for a week, and we'll do it. And I think, to begin with, I think there was a great amount of convenience involved, but, of course, they get in the studio in Manchester, Morrissey flounces off to London on the bloody train, don't come back. So the vocals are all done in London. So, but I think that was one of the big things, that it was convenient. But it was convenient for a reason. It was convenient in Manchester because someone had decided to make it convenient for people in Manchester. So yeah, but that doesn't make it any less culturally significant, I don't think, because it was convenience that motivated it.
Would you say that Johnny Marr had quite a big say in this as well? You know, I think because he's obviously the music.
Has there ever been anything Johnny Marr's done that he didn't have a big say?
Yeah, so I mean, so it's not just because it's a cheap studio in Manchester.
No.
I think Johnny Marr would have definitely wanted to go to that studio.
I think so, yeah.
I can't imagine he's the kind of person who would just go with a record label.
No, but I mean, because they had one eye on their musical history, didn't they? They were big students of musical sort of legend, if you like. You know, he arranged the meeting to be like Leaving and Solo meeting, you know.
Yeah.
So, and Morrissey was a big Hermits fan. And so I think there's an element that the first singles recorded at Strawberry and the first album recorded at Pluto. I think there's one eye on the Manchester sort of legend there, because if there's ever a band that had one eye on building their own legend, it was the Smiths. Definitely. No, they did. I mean, that's not to the detriment. I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, you're actually seeing the story in mythic time, not just.
That's right. Yeah.
But he must have liked the studio as well.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, well,
because he's very controlling on the sound, which he should be.
Yeah.
But he must have checked that studio out. He's not just going there because he's...
No, I think there's an element of convenience, but I don't think anybody could tell Johnny Marr what to do just to make somebody else's life easy, unless it was Morrissey.
Yeah, well, they have to work together to a certain point. But I'm just interested why he wanted to use Strawberry, which is much more of an established studio for that kind of music. And why would he use Pluto over Strawberry? That
might have been cost, actually. Maybe, I don't know. Because, like I say, Jeff Jarvis was on the purse strings by then, so it might have been. I don't know. It might have been that it was booked up and they only had that week to do it. I don't know. Who can say?
My guess is there must be a creative kind of...
You think? Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Because Pluto is much... It's definitely the smaller relation.
Yeah, it's little brother, if you like, yeah.
Yeah, it's track record, the amount of bands that went in. It's got an interesting anomalies, of course, like Bank Robber, etc.
Yeah. But it's not got the same cultural cachet as...
No, so Strawberry's like you said before, people deliberately went there because the way the studio was built, the way you could get certain sounds in there. Martin Hanley built their reputation, obviously 10cc is a pretty big one as well. But Pluto has none of these things.
No. I mean, it might be that Morrissey was a massive... Because he did East West, I don't know if you've ever heard, which is Herman's Hermits song written by Graham Gouldman, which is absolutely fantastic song. That's another one I could bang on about for hours. So it may be that he had one eye on everything, because as I say, he was a big Herman's Hermits fan. He blushed for a week when Peter Noon mentioned him on stage, apparently.
A whole week.
Yeah.
I mean, Herman's Hermits are interesting, aren't they? Because they ended up being a very kind of teeny pop band.
Yeah, I think...
But they were quite a tough little band.
They were, yeah, like Davy Hume, but I think what happened with them is, as happens with bands, Mickey Most got hold of them, and whatever Mickey Most, a great producer, whatever was top of his list of important things, great songs wasn't it. So they did the first album and then there was a bit shorter songs. So someone said, what if we do this one? We do this on stage where Peter Noone rolls his trousers up and puts the sax on his back and goes, Mrs. Brown, you've got to look. All right, we'll do that. And they all hated it. They hated it. And then they started getting all these people in America saying, oh, you must release that as a single. No chance, we're not releasing that. Not a chance of it. And then next thing, of course, it got 800,000 advanced orders before it was a single. So we'll stick that out. And then that kind of killed their sort of image as sort of a proper band, which they were, you know, they had some great stuff. But then Mickey Most, like, you know, Dollar Sign. Okay, all right. Then what about Leaning on a Lamppost? Yeah, we'll do that. So they did Lean on a Lamppost, and they did I'm Henry VIII I Am, which is shocking. So they kind of sold the soul to Mammon in a way, which I'm not blaming them.
Biggest group in the world.
Yeah, they were the biggest. At 64, they were as big as a 65 maybe.
They sold the stadium tour out in America, which the Beatles didn't do in 65.
That's right. Yeah. But the problem with that is, it's like you're like one of them towels in a Chinese restaurant, aren't you? You're very hot for a minute, and then you go cold very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So they ended up, and then the Monkeys came along and kind of took their audience away.
The Monkeys seem very based.
Yeah, I mean, David Jones was Peter Noone.
Manchester, yeah.
Have we got a Manchester bloke who used to be in Coronation Street to front this band? Oh yeah, so because they were both the same. He was Len Fairclough's son, Peter Noone.
Yeah.
Coronation Street. So he was definitely they were built to take away Herman's audience, I think.
I've interviewed Peter Noone, he's funny.
He's full on, isn't he?
He's
got a
really
lovely head of hair for his age as well, isn't he? But he's out every night. There's a really good argument between him and the drummer, because the drummers ended up with the name, Herman's Hermits, because they split up and he went solo, and then they got back together for this tour, and then they ended up being called Peter Noone and Herman's Hermits, which doesn't make any sense at all, because he was Herman. Susan Ballions, Susie and the Banshees, it doesn't make sense, because that was him. So then they had this big row, and he managed to get this judge to sign a bit of paper, the drummer, that they had the right to the Hermits name, and so they go out and they sue each other every couple of weeks. So it's been going on for 30 years.
Lawyers always win.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah. And nobody learns anything, do they?
No.
Here we are, and Barney and Ucky are still at it.
Still probably the same lawyers.
Yeah.
So why do they build a studio in Manchester? Is it the same reason as 10cc?
I think so, yeah. Well, they started off, the original idea was, because they used to write all the B-sides, Keith Hopwood and Derek Lackenby, the guitarist in the Hermits, they used to write album tracks and B-sides and stuff. And Mickey Most would farm out whatever single he could get like. So then they were having to go to London to demo these songs, and still living in Manchester. And so they decided, they went to, the precursor of Strawberry was this place called Intercity, which was basically a bother shop. And a lot of it was crap basically. It was just tape recorder and some egg boxes taped to the wall. So the bands went in there, and then Eric Stewart said, I'm going to build a proper facility. And then they got the idea from them, I think, and thought, well, we'll build our own studio just for demoing. And then they did it, and it just kind of took off from there, really. And then they made it into a proper studio, and then they ended up doing these advertising things. So yeah, I don't think there was any great master plan, other than I'm sick to death of schlepping out of London to record, so, which is the main thing with Eric Stewart as well, I think. So again,
I think Granada's quite a big player. They do the advertising jingles, TV theme tunes.
Yeah.
So it's Manchester isn't really like a normal place already.
It's not. No, I mean Granada's a massive thing because there's I can't remember his name. The guy who started Granada was different because a lot of the people who ran the local root studios saw it as a stepping stone to get to London, which he never did, you know. And his famous quote is, "What Manchester does today, London does tomorrow," you know. So it's like that sort of hand-in-hand thing between Manchester bands and Granada. Because if you ever see any documentary about any band from 1960 onwards, there's always some film, and it's always Granada. You know, that Doors documentary, that's Granada.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash in Folsom Prison, that's Granada.
They made great music TV.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And they employed Tony Wilson as well, so, you know.
Yeah.
Granada's a massive part of the song.
In a way, he was almost part of a tradition that was always in place. I mean, he amplified it.
Yes.
To perfection, but
He did.
It was already in place, the wheels were in motion, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, yeah.
He kind of put words on it, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Manchester.
Any other questions? Yeah.
The Happy Mondays did. The Happy Mondays, well, they didn't do much recording in Manchester, but what happened was, Bummed, the album Bummed, they recorded that in Rockfield or somewhere out, but Martin Hannett...
Lincolnshire,
Yeah. Martin Hannett took the tapes and he mixed it in Strawberry. And you can sort of hear it in a way. It's like the last great Martin Hannett production, that.
It is.
It's a great album, isn't it? But you can hear his hands all over it, the kind of spaces and the sort of echo. They didn't do a lot. Oasis were basically the same as most of the bands in the 60s. They got 3 pence to rub together and bugger off down to London as soon as they could, I think.
I think they were so big they had no choice.
Well,
yeah.
As I keep coming back to it, you've always got a choice.
But I think they got to a point where they couldn't even go to town.
Yeah, because people were telling Noel and Liam Gallagher what to do. They could have recorded. I'm not knocking them for doing it, but they were very much for me like the 60s bands. We'll go. And while playing up how mank they were and city shirts and all that, let's move to London and do it there because it's easy, So I mean, it worked, didn't it? I'm not knocking them. As a career path, they didn't do too badly, did they?
And imagine if you're in the fall going to town and the peak of the fall is not the same as when you're the peak of Oasis.
Well, no, not at all. But I really don't think that Noel and Liam Gallagher moved to London because every time they walked down Market Street they were getting mobbed. I don't think that was the main motivation. Because they're massive in London as well. They're probably bigger in London than they are here.
You could disappear in London a lot easier than here.
Yeah, maybe.
I think I'm not defending on this, but I think it's a different kind of pressure they had.
Yes, of course, they were massive, weren't they? They were absolutely huge. Don't judge a man until you've walked a mile in his shoes, I always say. Because after that, he's a mile away and you've got his shoes.
Carry on. But there's a lot of studios in town then. It was different. I suppose in the 60s, 70s period, a couple of studios, we could probably count Sweet 16 on it. That's like
there was a few
slightly out of the loop, but it's there, isn't it?
Well, the way was there was nothing up until Strawberry. But when he decided to build Strawberry, there was no studios that weren't in London. Nothing. And then he built that. And then by the time you get to Spiral Scratch, there's lots of these little studios like Arrow and what have you, and lots of little ones like that. But the thing was, to do your big recording, you went to London. I mean, and that's what Oasis did. I can't blame them. You can't blame them for doing it, can you? Really, and it certainly worked, doesn't it?
Well, they did it in Wales, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Mono Valley, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and Rockfields and that little.
But I don't think they had a massive eye on the Manchester sort of thing then. I think they thought they were. There was a bit of that with Stone Roses as well. They kind of reacted to the sort of miserable tag. I think they didn't like that. And they ended up being the quintessential Manchester band in a lot of ways because you can't get away from it, can you?
Most of them stayed in Manchester, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, definitely.
So it's a patchwork of studios in the 80s. One that there's quite a lot. But your book doesn't really do that.
No. Like I say, that was what my original intention was to do them all. Yeah. And then I looked at it, and like I say, I'm going to tell the story in microcosm and then spread it out and tell the whole story just by looking at these two.
Yeah, and which I love about the book. I love about any book that takes a tiny little chink, tiny little thing. You can tell the whole story through like a very small space, and it's always very interesting.
Well, I want it to have a plot, really. I want it to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And if you're just telling the story of all the studios, then it becomes a different kind of book. It becomes a sort of, it's not an encyclopedia, but
A to Z of Manchester.
Yeah, that's right. But I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to do that. I wanted it to say, and then you can get all sorts of branches off that you can tell other bits of the story, but essentially there's a river running through it.
And it's interesting how that great untold story of 10cc just getting told as well.
Well, it amazed me that it is untold. That's what I couldn't, because obviously you decide to write a book and you think, right, I'll get all the great books about 10cc and I'll get all the great books about the Hollies, and there aren't any.
Yeah.
There isn't a really, really good book about 10cc that goes back and says, this is how they started, because it's a fantastic story, and I don't know why there isn't. There's a million books about lots, that was the other one I wanted to do. Yeah, there's too many books about the fall. But one of the things I wanted to say was, if you look at, the Beatles, you can see what Ringo had for breakfast the morning he recorded Yellow Submarine.
Yeah.
And next door, you've got the Hollies making absolutely brilliant records. I mean, literally next door, Studio 2, Studio 3. And there's nothing ever written about it, And the way the story, because the Beatles were that good, and they were, obviously, their lesser works get more of a light shined on them than some of the greatest works by other artists. I think that if Graham Gouldman had written the songs, recorded them, if he'd have written Bus Stop, East West, No Milk Today, and put them out, they're as good as the Beatles. They're that sort of 60s. They're as good as that, but they don't, because it's a bit of a messier story. It doesn't get told. So it's time the tale was told, I think.
Yeah, someone should write this down.
Yeah, they should, shouldn't they? Yeah, I don't know what you call it.
And one more question. I'm sure somebody put a hand up.
I think it's a lot less important now. The space where you record is a lot less. Not with the digital thing. I mean, people still do. I mean, we were in Blueprint, which is a really nice studio, you know, where Elbow do. That's a nice studio, but I think it definitely is less important where you record now. But the other thing I don't understand about bands is these days, where do they get the money? It's so expensive, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Well, mum and dad, isn't it?
Yeah, like it must be. I think it's got to be, hasn't it? Because you know, it's a great business, rock and roll. If someone could think of a way of monetising it, we'd do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. They do. I mean, Abbey Road's still going strong.
You need a good drum room. I mean, this could get very techie, but to record a band, guitar-based drums, you need a room where the drums sound good. Everything else you can record anywhere, can't you?
Yeah, I think so. To get a really good drum sound, I think. But you,
like a room like this actually would be nice for drums. Yeah.
But do you not think there's a lot of, well, it's less important to get a great drum sound on a lot of records now? You can get it's like I don't know, it's like Wetherspoons versus pubs. Instead of getting really great
drummer.
No, but you get really great. It used to be you go in a pub in the 70s and you might get a great pint, and then so you go in 6 pubs and it's like what the hell's this? Whereas now you get like a level. You go in a pub, you can be guaranteed a decent meal, you can be guaranteed, and now a lot of people would argue you'd lost something, but a lot of other people are saying, well, you know, I haven't got the money to go to 6 crap pubs and end up in a decent one. So I think that's a lot of that now with recording, where you can say, I can get it this good. If I spend a load of money, I can get it this good. Is it worth it? I don't know. Well,
I would say
there's no answer, is there?
You listen to like a Steve Albini recording, and the drums make your mouth water.
They do.
They sound fantastic, don't they?
Yeah, but the drums make your mouth water.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the great British,
I don't care about it.
No, you can't. I know you can't do that. But there's unfortunately there's a scale of economy in it that you say I can spend whatever and get the best drum sound in the world, or I can spend this and get a perfectly adequate drum sound.
But it's art, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's a ridiculous concept, but you're making something, you spend everything you've got to make something sound the way that only you like.
Yes, which is great, but there's a lot of people out there who can't afford to do that, you know. And you can't knock them. You can't say, if I'm going to do this, I can't be in a band, so I'm going to cut some corners, and I'll end up with a perfectly good record. But I might not end up with. But
the flip side of that coin is that most average studios can get a fairly okay.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Whereas in the 70s, when I started recording, they had no clue how to get.
No. Some of them are just abysmal, aren't they? Like the one is like the Ideal for Living EP like that. I mean, it sounds all right if you hear it now. They've cleaned it up. But if you got the record, Steve had the record, and it sounds like it's been played in the next room in a bag. It's like, what the hell is this? It's terrible, you know. And there was a lot of that, I think. Whereas now it's the same argument. You can go, or you might have got 4 people who luckily got the best sound in the world and made a fantastic record, but you've got to wade through a lot of crap to get to that. Whereas now it's the same in everything. I think it's the same in lots of areas of life where people insist on a certain standard, and one of the prices you pay for that is you don't get up there, but then you never get down there. So, and it's the first thing you go, and if you've got no money, you're going to say, I'll go for that. I think.
It's interesting little theory here. Could be a good last chapter. The averaging out.
The averaging out. Yeah. Well, that's growing old. That. The averaging out of life.
Never take second best.
Let me write that down. The averaging.
Sell everything. Get that hi-hat to sound right.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing, but it's an understandable thing. Right?
Oh, it's understandable, but we're not. Art's not.
No, it's of course.
Art's not sensible. It's ridiculous.
Yes, of course it is ridiculous. Yeah.
So that doesn't really answer your question, does it?
That's the average.
Okay, well, thanks to Paul. You're going to sign some books.
I am, I don't know who's.
The Room.
Yeah.
You're not brought it?
I might sign my own. There's a few out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
No, I'll sign mine.
There seems to be a whole table laden down.
There is. They're all our Steve's.
Your book and books about the bleeding fall as well. There's only one you want, that's his.
Yeah. I'd go for that.
If you don't like the fall, which is almost impossible, his book's worth buying because it is a story of how to.
It's a great. I mean, you don't want to hear me sitting here telling you how great my brother's book is, but it is a good book.
That's why I was doing it. So thanks to Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much.